I wanted to create a more in-depth view of the electrical system because I've had some questions about it. So I'll kind of take you on a tour and be more in depth in what all components and systems I use. So starting off here in the front, the driver's side seat underneath there is where the alternator battery is. I ran two 2-gauge wires down through the floor, through the insulation, and then all the way back here to the back of the van. Here in the van, I've got all my electrical components on the passenger side of the van, and I'll just kind of give you a walkthrough of how that all works. So first up, we've got the 12-volt power from the front of the van. That's running back here to the battery charger. I chose the Renogy 50 amp DC to DC onboard battery charger with built-in MPPT because I wanted to be able to charge from my alternator battery to the batteries in the back, and I also wanted the capability later to add solar panels and have that MPPT controller. So this unit allows you to do both of those things. I have a power wire coming in. I also have a negative coming up from the batteries, and that's going over to this distribution block. So I chose to use the Fastronic 3/8 4-stud power distribution block and the ground distribution block. So we'll start with the ground. Coming from the alternator battery up front, it's going into the distribution block. From there, I added one additional negative wire for an additional chassis ground. And then we have the ground that goes back over here to the DC side, which is only a 2-gauge wire. Everything else is 2-aught wire. And then off the distribution block, you have one ground that comes around and goes to the Renogy inverter charger. And then there's a shunt between the distribution block and the negative connection that goes to the battery there. That shunt is what helps control the Renogy 500 amp battery monitor in the front that allows me to see what my charge is at all times from the front of the vehicle. And then battery wise, I chose the Renogy 200 amp 12 volt gel batteries, and I wired those in parallel. So I have 400 amp hours, but in a system like this, we know we're only going to run that down to about 50% of our capacity. So theoretically, we have 200 amp hours of power, which is plenty because we'll also, anytime we move, we'll be charging the batteries with the alternator. When we add a couple solar panels on the roof, we'll be charging the batteries all the time. And then anywhere that we stop, we can also charge the batteries off of the shore power. So that's the negative side of things. And then on the positive side of things, wire that is, the Renogy battery to battery chargers, the power's coming in, power comes out and goes into this fuse box, as you can see there, a little fuse panel, and then that comes on around into the Fastronic 3/8 4-stud power distribution block, 2-aught wire up to another 200 amp fuse, and then I've got this actually shut off now, so I can shut the power off that's coming from the front to the batteries or from the batteries going into the system. So shut off, and then we go up to the positive side of that battery, and you'll see there I have a Bay Marine 50 amp terminal fuse block kit, and that allows me to not have to put all of my cables on one terminal. It just makes it a lot easier. Then you can see my power wire goes over parallel to the other battery. This side of the power wire comes around into another fuse, 200 amp, to another shutoff. So this one can shut off the Renogy inverter charger, which I have, it's on now. But my system is actually shut off because I've got my remote up front and then I got my power here off. But so that's the power goes into the inverter charger, coming out of the inverter charger. And I've got 110 AC, and that goes over to this house style breaker. And I've got a 20 amp breaker because all I have is a one plug-in up in the front, and that has 2 USBs and 2 plugs, so we could run things like any of our cooking stuff that runs off of regular house AC, or anything else that we may want to plug in and charge as we're traveling. So shore power, this is my input. I ran 10 2-wire, and that's over here in this connection. This is a 30 amp connection. Allow you to hook up to your shore power, so your AC power at your house or at an RV park. It'll also allow you to plug into a generator, so you could charge your system off of a generator or run your system off of a generator if you need be, if you're really doing some dispersed camping. You'll see a few other little cables here, both on the inverter charger and the battery to battery charger. There are battery temperature monitors, and those go up and they're connected to the side of the battery. That just lets you know what the temperature of the batteries are, because if they get too hot, it'll start shutting some of the systems down to safeguard everything. And then on the DC side of things, I have this Blue Sea ST Blade fuse block. I've got all my wires running to things like the Dometic fridge, 12 volt, the Max Air Fan Deluxe is 12 volt, the puck lights that are in the ceiling, the little LED, the Ace Goo RV recessed ceiling lights, they're hooked to the 12 volt distribution block. And you can see I've got a negative and then a positive. So I also added a little breaker here, if you can see it, and then you can just flip a switch and that'll disconnect all of your 12 volt, all the power going to the 12 volt. So at any time I want to service anything, I can easily flip that switch and add wires or work on something. For the 12 volt, I use 12 gauge wire and 14 gauge wire. For the heavier powered equipment like the Dometic fridge, I use the 12 volt and the Max Air Fan Deluxe. Didn't really need it, but I went ahead and ran the 12 volt to that too, and then a few of the plugs up front in case we run something a little heavier duty on the 12 volt system. So we got our negatives and our positives. Really nice clean system. I don't have the cover on that right now, but the inverter charger, I chose the Renogy 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter charger. That way it gives us plenty of power. It is a monster, but I think it's going to serve us well. And it will convert the AC power, invert the AC power over to DC power. And then also it'll invert the DC power from the batteries to AC power. So if we want to run something off of just the batteries and not the plug, the shore power plug. So I'm going to run up front and show you a couple more little things with this. First up is our remote for the Renogy inverter charger. Allows us to turn off the inverter charger remotely, which is nice if we don't need it. We have the Renogy 500 amp battery monitor. You can see here our batteries are 100%. We've got 399 amp hours. Still working on calibrating this, but because we plugged into shore power last night, we've got a completely full battery system. And then we have here is a little 5 switch rocker panel DC. It's kind of cool because it gives you the voltage that's in the batteries right now. And then we've got a couple USBs and then one cigarette lighter adapter there. And then I just got a little light run down here. It's a little Renogy USB light. It's actually solar too, and it's got seatbelt thing. You can cut your seatbelt and glass breaker if needed, but real easy to get to. We got a few USBs located around the van. There's one up there, and then down here is our 110 outlet with dual USBs. So if you want to run something that's powered off AC, you can hook that up. And then down at the bottom here is our Dometic fridge. These switches that are on the rocker panel, one of the things I forgot to add is I wanted to be able to walk out of the van and turn things off if I wanted to. Like I can completely shut off the Dometic fridge. I can turn the Max Air fan off if we want to just walk out and shut it if it's running. You also have the remote for the Max Air fan, which is really nice because it's got a lot of settings and controls. Put this up here on the bed, and then that's the Max Air Fan Deluxe model that allows you to have that open during the rain, which is very important because It gets really warm in a vehicle if you're camping in the summer and you can't get some airflow. So, and then the other thing here, obviously you've got your lights, so the puck lights, that's on there. But that's it. I just want to kind of get a deeper dive. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a comment. You can follow me at Facebook or Instagram. On Instagram, I'm at nomadic_future. YouTube channel is nomadic_future. And then on Facebook, my name, Chad Morris. So thanks a lot, guys.